Hi guys, welcome to the third part of our Java video. So today we're going to be talking about variables. So what is a variable? Variable is a place where you can basically store any kind of data. We can store numbers, strings, lists, you name it. In this case, we have a variable called x, and we're going to be storing the number 10. How I like to see this is that this is a right to left direction, where I am going to be assigning the number 10 into this location called x. So the prime difference between Python and Java is not that different. It's just that in Java you have to state the data type of x, whereas in Python you don't have to do that, and in Java you have to have a semicolon at the end, which is kind of a given. So there's a difference between declaring and initializing variables, which are two very important terminologies that Java programmers know. So how I like to see this is if we have this line of code right here, then I like to split it by where the equal sign is. Declaring is the left side of the equal sign, which is where you are stating the data type of the variable. Initializing is the right side of the equal sign, and that's where you're assigning a value into the variable. So that's declaring and initializing. And here are the different data types in Java. Data types in Java are split by two different types. There's the primitive types and there are the reference types. The primitives and references are just to denote how Java stores different data types. Primitives are kind of simpler than references are, but you don't really need to understand right now what the differences are. But in primitives, I've highlighted some of them to be orange because you're going to be seeing them pretty often, such as character, integer, floats, and booleans. In reference types, the most common data type you're going to be seeing is string. So I just wanted to go over the different ways in which we represent numbers. So we have integers, floats, and doubles. Integers are literally just whole numbers with negative numbers included. Floating point numbers are decimal numbers, such as -1.0, 0.0, except we have to denote it with an f at the end. If we don't put the f at the end, then it'll consider it to be a double. So doubles are like floats, but they hold bigger decimal numbers, and you don't need to put an f at the end of 3.0, for example. So I just wanted to actually illustrate the whole idea of a strongly typed language, which is what we just did, where we declare variables to be a specific data type. That is considered a strongly typed language. And let me show you why exactly it is. So let me just delete this line of code. Let me write my main function. So right now I'm gonna declare an integer x, but then I'm gonna store a floating point number. Oops. In Python you can do this, but in Java you can't do that because we have already defined x to be an integer, so it can only hold integer values, but now we are putting in a floating point number 1. So let's try to compile this and we'll see what happens. Whoops, I actually want to clear all of that out because it's so ugly. Great, we get compilation error. Once again, compilation error is where the computer kind of proofreads your code and see if it has any pre-errors that it can find, and one of them is data type incompatibility errors. So here how we read this error is that in helloworld.java, this class file, on line 5. So we go to helloworld.java at line 5, which is this line right here. We know that this is going to be an error for us. It says incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from float to an int. And it actually even prints out what the error is. And here it's int x is equal to 1.0f. So what this basically means is that you cannot store a floating point number inside an integer variable. So we have to fix that. So in order to fix it, it's super easy. You just get rid of the 0.0f. Now we're going to compile it again, and then we are going to run it. So we get a number 1. So we are done with this. So that's why it's called a strongly typed language, because you declare a container to be a specific data type, and you cannot change the data type of that variable at a later place. So I also wanted to point out the difference between using single quotes and double quotes. So in characters, we use single quotes. In strings, we use double quotes. And you might not be able to tell the difference between a character and a string just yet, but just know that characters are considered primitive data types and strings are considered reference data types. And when you take data structures, you're going to be able to differentiate the two when you run into a lot of errors when you confuse the two data types. There's also different ways to create variables. In Python, you always have to kind of create your variable on one line of code where x equal to 10. You don't have to do that in Java because we have this whole idea of declaring and initializing. So for this first example, we can just declare hello to be a string on one line, and on a different line, you can initialize hello to be hello world and just print it. So this idea is that you can declare hello on line 1, but then you can initialize hello at line 10, for example. However, I prefer the second way, which is just declaring and initializing it on the same line. So you can do either of the two cases. And I wanted to talk about scoping. You might not be able to understand just yet the difference, or you might understand the difference between global and local variables, but why exactly are they important is a case that we're going to cover in later videos. So global variables are essentially variables that can be accessed anywhere within this class file. So let's say I had a different method here. We don't know what that method is, but we wanted to access this variable hello. It'll be able to access the variable hello here. I don't know, I just forgot for a second. And then in this case for local variables, so hello is a local variable to main. And so let's say I had a different function here and I wanted to access the variable hello. I won't be able to do it because hello is a local variable to the main function, and so hello cannot be accessed outside of the main function. And I just saw a quick error here is that if I were to run this code right now, it will not run because this is supposed to be declared as a static string hello. And so if you run it right now, then it's gonna give you a compilation error. But just letting you know that there needs to be a static in the front here. You don't need to understand why it has to be static just yet, but just know that it'll cause errors if you don't put it there. So that is kind of like the key difference between global and local variable. Local variables are only bound to the function itself, and it cannot be accessed outside of that function. For global variables, you can access it anywhere within this class container. But that's about it with variables, and we will be using them very often throughout the videos because they're like the building blocks of creating Java code essentially. But that's about it, and we will move on to the next video.